What's up, guys? We are back with another batch of Super 7 Ultimates, jumping into an entirely different property this time with the first wave of the long-awaited Disney figures. And we're starting off with my personal favorite of the wave of 3. So today we're taking a look at the Fantasia Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey. Fantasia is just a movie that I have loved since I was a kid. I love everything about it. You know, if they could give me a massive Chernabog, I would also be on board for that. But Sorcerer Mickey is obviously like the mascot for well, a lot of things, not just this movie. So I'm really excited to take a look at this guy within the confines of Ultimates and see how this stuff all works. Of course, these still come in that familiar, you know, sort of trapezoidal style package, but they are super decked out when it comes to deco. So like even the slipcovers are metallic and foil embossed. You've even got the Fantasia 80 years logo up here in the top corner, and then you've got sort of like a swirl of magic that goes all the way around, the Disney logo on the back here. But of course, you know, it is the slipcover system here, so you can pop that guy off, and you've got Mickey there in the big window inside of like sort of like a castle motif, and then you've got the Fantasia logo down there on the bottom. You've got the broom on one side panel, and then the back of the box has Mickey kind of embossed on there with a little bit of a bio in terms of what is going on with this particular version. So, you know, great presentation as usual. I'm always a fan of these, but these slipcovers are pretty fancy. They remind me of that chrome Voltron that we got, and I'm all for foil embossed stuff. So they look great right out the gate, but we got to do it. So let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package, our Super 7 Ultimates Wave 1 Mickey Mouse, the Sorcerer's Apprentice version, and on any given day, my favorite version of Mickey. So I'm really happy that they started off with this guy. And in the confines of just this line and these figures, this is definitely a new territory for Ultimates. This guy, well, really this entire line. The Disney line of Ultimates are very different from everything else we've seen so far. Specifically, Mickey and Pinocchio are going to be more different than the rest because of the fact that, well, we're not talking about a 7-inch figure. I know that figures, you know, range in size when it comes to Ultimates, but this guy is an outlier when it comes to size. Pinocchio is going to be an outlier as well because they're just small. They're scaled pretty well, but they're small, so they're different. And articulation for this guy does take a hit because of that, I think. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. Most of it is still very Ultimates. Like, it's very, very much familiar territory, save for kind of one thing. So he's got a head that can look up a little bit. It's just a ball peg. He can look down slightly, and then, you know, that's kind of neutral right about there. You've got your tilt side to side, a little bit of bobble, and then there's some rotation. Arms go all the way out and up at the shoulder, so you can get them to go like that far, really, which is pretty good range. And then, of course, they can rotate. They don't actually really get too hindered by the fact that he's got the robes on, so that's good. No real issues to speak of there. We've got a single jointed elbow, so about 90 degrees, and then you've got your rotation point in there also. We've also got hinges and rotation at the wrist. Now this robe is covering, you know, the entirety of the figure basically, but it really doesn't get in the way, and it's kind of interesting because it's clearly something that's put on during construction of the figure because it's not like an open robe. This belt isn't keeping it shut or anything like that. It's really just for show. The bottom is open, but the top is basically a shirt. So it's covering the torso entirely, and there is nothing, unfortunately, underneath that. So there is, well, there's a body, obviously, but there's no diaphragm cut. There's no waist twist here either. So he is just a solid buck torso when it comes to the chest, and again, nothing at the waist either. So you can kind of, you know, we can kind of show that right there. So he's got some blue trunks on underneath there, but there's no rotation here. Nothing's going to move. You can swivel the legs up there, so the hips do have a little bit of a swivel. They go out, of course, about that far. They kick forward pretty much all the way, and they do have a little bit of back kick also. And there's a shimmy again. So you've got the shimmy. We've got our single jointed knees, just to more, you know, clearly illustrate this by keeping that robe up. And then, of course, these do rotate in there. So you've got rotation at that knee. You do have hinges at the ankle. They are, of course, limited because of the style of the foot and the fact he's got this boot cuff here. They're going to hit. And there is a little bit of a rocker, but it's pretty minimal. He does have a tail as well, and it is a little ball hinge. So it can swivel in you know, his butt, and then you've got hinge forward, backward, side to side, whatever direction you have to be posing it. So he is decently articulated, but he definitely suffers from form factor, I think. The waist twist is really what I'm surprised he's missing. I was expecting him to at least have a twist, but he does not have anything there. It does impede his ability to be a little bit more dynamic, I think, but the rest of him is surprisingly okay. I think that he is very, very much still on par with Ultimate's form factor. Same kind of neck, same kind of arms, hands, knees. The hips are basically the same, all that stuff. The big glaring difference and change on this guy, though, does come from the lack of torso articulation. Now, where my main interests kind of lie with, well, I don't know, most if not all of these figures, and I say this a lot, it's the aesthetics. But this is a pretty different situation for why I'm saying it. The big reason is because having gone back, you know, before I got these in hand, I wanted to take a look at those original solicitations, just get an idea, just a refresher of, you know, what were they going to look like. And these look so much different from what we actually got shown during those original prototypes, which, you know, it's been a while. So they've definitely gone through some revisions, and I think that it has been for the positive when it comes to these figures. Mickey in particular, if you go back and look at some of that original imagery, like, you know, the hand-painted original protos, they look kind of off-model in many ways, and I don't think they were exactly kind of dialed in yet. But this is a much improved look for Mickey, I think. I'm really happy with the way he turned out. I'm really happy with the sizing on him. Again, I do think his size has precluded some articulation, but he's going to scale really nicely with just about anything. So I'm pretty happy with that. Well, not anything, but a lot of stuff, and especially Ultimates. So there is a lot going on here, despite his relatively small size. I will say right off the bat that there is a little bit of an area where I wish we had some more paint. I wish we had some paint on the face, just like a little bit of shading almost, like around the edges, just to sort of soften him up. I kind of wish that had happened, just to soften that up. It doesn't need to be fully painted, I don't think, for my own personal taste, but I wish it had a little bit of something. I do think that the sculpt in general on this figure is pretty well done. I mean, I love his goofy big feet. Those look great. They look very cartoony. The kind of oversized hands, they look, again, very cartoony. I really, really like this robe. I want to say that I thought the robe was supposed to be wired, but now that I think about it, I'm not really sure if it was ever described as such. That said, I don't think it really matters here either, because it's such a small piece of fabric, like it really makes no difference. You can even get it to sort of flare out on its own, because again, it is such a small piece of fabric. You can get it to sort of flare backwards if you want. There's no wire in there doing that. It's just holding itself up because of the small size and the fact that that belt is sort of cinching it around the waist a little bit. So I do really like that. The feel of it, just the color, and the type of fabric. It's sort of like a velour, velvety kind of color almost, or fabric rather. So I think that looks nice, and it feels good, and it sits on him very well. And again, like I said, it doesn't really get in the way of his articulation. Like, I was worried that he wasn't going to be able to do stuff like this, but you can get his arm all the way up. It's not super tight, and it's also not super loose either. It is very form-fitting while still being, I don't know, kind of flowy, I suppose. And then he does, of course, have a very iconic head sculpt up here, and I think they did a pretty solid job for the most part. Again, I wish that there was a little bit more paint on the, I don't know, what do you call this color on Mickey Mouse? Is it his flesh? Is it his, I don't know. It's whatever this is, the non-black part. And I think it looks fine. Otherwise, the sculpt is good. The mouth is nicely done. A little bit of paint in there. And then just the expression. I mean, this is a very classic, you know, happy, smiling Mickey. The sorcerer's hat is really big, kind of oversized again. His ears are poking out the sides. You've got the moon and the stars motif all over it. The colors look nice, the blues, varying shades of blues. But he looks really good. That's really what it comes down to. He does look really good. He's not perfect, I don't think. I do wish there was, again, you know, for the 15th time, I wish there was a little bit of paint on that face. But otherwise, I am pretty happy with him. Size, really, really nicely done. We'll do some size comparisons here in a minute. But the cartoony features he does have are accentuated really well. And again, this robe really does tie him all together. It looks great. It moves really well, and it has a nice feel to it. Now, of course, I have mentioned that he is small, but how small is small? That's, of course, a relative thing. He doesn't look very small when he's just on camera by himself. So here he is alongside a few other Super 7 offerings. which is probably the best place to start. So we've got our Ultimates Leo, and these are not the biggest Ultimates by any means. We will get to that point. And then we've got our reaction, King Diamond. So you can see that he's got a hat on. The hat does add a little bit of height to him, but he's basically about a 4-inch figure, roughly. He's a little bit taller because of the hat, but for the most part, I'd say he falls within that 4-inch realm when it comes to what you could say he is actually sized. Leo is, of course, a little bit on the smaller side. When it comes to Ultimates, the turtles do skew a little bit smaller. So let's move the King aside and bring somebody in that's a little bit bigger. So there is our Ultimates Muckman, which is by and large still like the biggest one that we've got. And he is absolutely dwarfing Mickey. Let's do a more standard 112 style figure. So here he is with the Marvel Legends Nova, and I think that gives you a pretty good approximation of what he looks like with pretty much any Hasbro offering. And then let's move Muckman aside, and we'll go back to another Super 7 Ultimate Series with Casey for a different style of figure. He's not small, but he's not big. And then let's do another Marvel Legends, a different kind of Legends. This puts him into perspective, I think. Here he is with the Marvel Legends Wolverine, and you can see Wolverine is not that much taller than him, and of course he's a smaller size Legends as well. And then let's do another 7-inch style figure, 7-inch scale. Here he is with a Mythic Legions figure. There's a pretty good chance that we're going to see Sorcerer Mickey going up against the forces of Mythos at some point, right? Seems ripe for the taking there. So you can get an idea of how big he is. I mean, he's definitely like more of like a 4-inch style figure, but the hat does add a little bit of height to him. He is still very much his own thing. I don't know specifically if everything is going to scale in and out of this line, but I think he does fit pretty well so far alongside a bunch of 7-inch stuff. Now, of course, this is an Ultimates figure, so where would we be without, I don't know, 1,000,001 accessories? And this guy is really jam-packed with a bunch of stuff. There are a lot of things that could be given to Sorcerer Mickey. Despite the fact that it's such a short part of Fantasia, he has a lot of options. So they gave us kind of a bit of everything, with one thing being absolutely ridiculously massive, and I suppose it had to be, right? So to start with, we're not going to talk about the broom first, we're going to talk about heads. So he comes with 2 extra head sculpts. He's got the sort of open mouth happy one here. That's the one he comes with in the box. We get this one, which is him, which might be my favorite. So this is his like scowling head. And what I really like about these extra heads is that the hat is pointed in a different direction. So it's not just like a carbon copy. This one is pointed a little bit forward, whereas this one's pointing to, well, your right. But he's got this sort of scowl going on, which, there's a lot of emotions that will go through Mickey's head when this is all going down. So you've got this one. If you want to have him chopping some brooms in half, you've got that one. And then we've got this one, which is just kind of like your more standard smiling Mickey. And this hat is, again, pointing in a different direction. So it's a little thing, but it's something that I do like. It makes them seem a little bit more unique. So instead of just being a closed mouth, the hat is also changed. So I do like the fact that we do get those. We get a bunch of hands, too. So in the box, he's got a flat kind of waving hand almost is kind of what it looks like, and the fist, and then you get the opposing hands for those. So, we've got a different flat hand and a different fist. We get a set of gripping hands. So, of course, a set is 2. You get a set of sort of splayed finger. These are basically spellcasting hands. And then you get a set of pointing finger hands. So you get these. So we get, 8 additional hands for a total of 10. So he's got a lot of hand options here when it comes to how you want to pose this guy on your shelf. We do get one of the brooms. I say I'm going to say this. I wish we had more than one. I don't know how feasible that possibly is. I'm certainly not going to buy a bunch of Mickeys just to get a bunch of brooms. But somebody out there is going to do that. And I'm interested to see the finished product of having like an army of these out there. These guys are non-articulated. They are just a broom, but they're basically like another small Staction figure. Like they don't move, but they're as big as Mickey. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. I mean, I really like this broom base. There's a ton of detail. on these bristles down here. There's even paint on the bottom, which is surprising. Seems unnecessary, but it's paint on the bottom. These buckets, as you see, are not attached, so you can give them to Mickey, but you can put them with the broom too. So they have some glossy water in there, and then they have a little bit of heft to them. Actually, they're pretty heavy, but they look great. They're sized really nicely, and you get two of them, of course, so Mickey can have one, the broom can have one, Mickey can have both, the broom can have both. The possibilities aren't, well, they're not endless, but they are a few. So we've got that. We've got the axe. So this, of course, can be given to Mickey if you want him to start chopping up other action figures, or, of course, if you want him to try to chop down the broom. So it's just got a brown handle with a sort of cartoony, cel-shaded style of gray blade up there. And then the last accessory that this guy comes with is the reason why when you get him and you question why the box is so heavy, it's because of this. It's because of the spell book. So this, of course, is, the book that he's using throughout the short. And it is massive, and it's supposed to be. It's got some really nice metallic paint on the binding on the outside, which this is really good. Like, I mean, I almost want to see like a Silverhawk. I shouldn't be saying that in this review. I want to see something painted like that. Like, it's really glossy. It looks really cool. And then you've got, the fake interior of the book, so you can have him, sort of kind of going rummaging through this, trying to find the right spell to right the wrong that he's created. And again, this thing is humongous. It is heavier than everything else in this box. It's as tall, slightly taller than Mickey, and of course you can see just how wide it is. It's solid plastic too, so there's a lot of material here. So he does come with a lot of stuff. I mean, there are a tremendous number of things in this box. 10 hands, the axe, the broom, 2 heads, additional heads, 2 buckets of water. There's a lot going on here to make this really small figure into a much larger, complete package. So overall, I am pretty happy with this guy. He does have some, no pun intended, shortcomings when it comes to articulation. He's not a perfect figure, and I wish he had more articulation at the diaphragm or at the waist or anything around there, but he does move well otherwise. He looks really nice. I'm very happy with the overall finished product when it comes to the visuals. Specifically that soft goods robe, I think it looks great. Colors are nice. It moves well. It's not restrictive in really any way. I do think, however, there should be a little bit more paint on that face, even if just a little bit of small shading just around the edges to sort of soften it up. But he does look very much like he jumped right out of the screen. I'm very happy to report that he does look much improved from the original solicitations. I think it's kind of a night and day difference when you get him side by side. And he comes with just a ton of accessories. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff in there. You basically get an extra figure with the broom and then that huge book and all the hands. There is a lot of stuff going on with this guy, so I'm pretty happy with the overall package. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Disney Wave 1 Sorcerer Mickey. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.